and thank you for the introduction.
Yeah, so what's funny is I'm just going to talk about how we got here, because we were supposed to be here yesterday, and we decided to go up through Bishop, and our big thing is connecting in nature. We really believe that connection to nature is really a connection to yourself, and when we connect to ourselves is when we become more balanced and we understand ourselves better. Yoga is a great way to connect with yourself too. You know, it's what I used for 25 years. It's really what helped me to understand what being in my body meant. And then I grew up in the great outdoors. I grew up in Sun Valley, Idaho, in a place not dissimilar to Squaw Valley. And the beauty and the grandeur of nature is so exquisite that it really feeds you and feeds who you are. And I really realized later on in life, because I am no longer that little girl in a movie, that nature was really the thing that gave me a sense of self and a sense of connection. And it's really what we do in our everyday life that matters. So it's the ability to connect to nature, it's food, it's how you move your body, it's what you think, it's your thoughts. And Bobby and I came together just with this passion for the outdoors, and he's a great adventurer, and he got me started doing adventurous things that I had always wanted to do. I was a ski racer, but now I'm rock climbing and doing way more scary, exciting things.
She cries a little bit, but she does great.
Probably why my eyes are red.
Well, we cut up through Bishop because there's this slacklining going on up there, and they were filming stuff, and Mariel and I started slacklining in the backyard at our house in Topanga Canyon probably 6 months ago, and we're getting pretty good at it, you know. Mariel can make it all the way across now. She couldn't even take one step. And when she was talking about connecting with your body, when I free solo, you know, I'm just in a pair of short shoes and a chalk bag. When you're 1,000 feet off the deck, you can't be anyplace else except for right there. And that experience for me is there's more connection than anything else in my life. But I seem to be able to carry that with me when I come down from the rock, you know. Things just seem a little bit less like intense. If somebody has a problem, it really isn't a problem. You look for the solutions in it because you're a lot more calm. And I'm sure people sort of experience that with yoga as well. And Mariel's got me into a little bit of yoga. I laugh at her and I'm like, this doesn't really work for me. You know, I tend to push too hard and it starts to hurt, and my back is actually sore when I do yoga. So we're sort of mixing and matching the male-female thing, you know. She's so yin and I'm so yang, and the balance is just fantastic when we come together. And another reason why we came up here so late instead of spending the weekend is, like, nature is never in a hurry, and I'm sort of on that clock, you know, and everything seems to get accomplished. It drives her absolutely crazy. You know, she's in the car looking at the map. How are we going to get up here? You know, I don't know what the roads look like. I'm like, look at this river. We need to pull over and get in this right away, you know, and you get your feet wet and you sit there and meditate a little bit. She goes off in one direction, I go in the other, and we come back together and take off. But we sort of live this lifestyle, and Mariel actually spoke in front of Congress when she was 17, and that was to protect the wilderness, right?
Protect the wilderness. So nature's always been a huge, you know, part of who I am, like I said before. And what we're trying to do, I mean, we're talking about this adventure and coming up here and all that stuff, but really we've made a business of this. We are connecting all the things that we do in our lives, whether it's food, because we're probably 80% raw. You know, we raw, sprouted, cooked, you know, a little bit of everything, but very clean, very natural. We don't eat abused animals. We're not vegan, but we are very careful about where our food comes from. And I think it's really, really important for all of us to know where our food comes from and know that it comes from nature. You know, there's factory farms out there, and animals are abused, and you don't want to eat that. You don't want that anxiety, that anger, and that fear to be ingested. So it's about connecting food and how you move and what you do in the mundane, you know, whether you wake up in the morning and you take deep breaths or you go out and you see a sunrise, something that Bobby and I do every day is we watch the sunrise and we watch the sunset.
Sunrises and sunsets changes your endocrine system. We're both coming up on 50, okay? So we don't look it, we don't feel it. I can still run a mile in 4 minutes and 39 seconds. And I went to the Olympics, you know, in '92. I was a wrestler. And at some point in time, I just got to the point where I said, I'm going to train for life, and I want to see how long I can live. And I tell Mariel that I'm going to live 200 years, and I really, really, truly believe that. You know, I don't see why I shouldn't. I mean, they set us up 15
and
years
I'm just
from
waiting
now.
to see how it looks, what
Yeah,
gravity's going to do to my
what's
body.
gravity going to do to me?
That's what I'm saying.
But 15 years from now, we're both supposed to be retired, and 25, we're supposed to check out. I mean, that's the thing, whatever that means, and we're not going anywhere.
And we sort of thought, who made these rules up? Who made the rule up that we have to be a certain way? It's like a belief system. We talk a lot about, you know, the biology of belief. That you know, Bruce Lipton wrote this wonderful book on the biology of belief, and belief systems kind of rule us, but it's not who we are. It's a belief. So we can change our belief systems by how you work in your everyday. What do you do every day? How do you eat? How do you connect? You know, how do you think?
Sort of how you do. One of our mottos is how you do anything is how you do everything.
It's true that slowing our lives down, a lot of people think because of the society that we live in, that moving fast is just the way it is. And it isn't the way it is, because actually when you give yourself time, when you slow your life down, you actually give yourself time. When you actually are present in the moment, when I can be here with you now, I give myself space. I create more space. So when you're present and you learn presence through doing your everyday things mindfully. You know, it's a Buddhist practice to be mindful in everything you do. So you do your yoga practice, do your yoga practice. Don't, you know, do your grocery shopping or pick up the kids or worry about what's happening outside of yourself, because that's not present. I mean, we all know that. I'm sure all of you are yogis, you have that understanding of what being present is. And that's why we keep bringing it back to nature. Nature's always present. There's no agenda. It doesn't have to be anywhere. It doesn't have to go anywhere. It's always there. The seasons change. We change with the seasons. We eat with the seasons. My last book, Mariel's Kitchen, is about seasonal eating. It's really important. We've gotten away from that. We can get blueberries in the middle of, you know, winter from Chile, so that's all good. Yes, they're healthy, but is it good to eat out of our environment? So the more we connect, the more we feel our environment, the more connected we get. And another thing that we do is we go out and we walk barefoot. You know, at sunrises and sunsets, we walk barefoot on the ground because there's an electromagnetic field, a magnetic, you know, field that you actually pick up from walking barefoot.
Yeah, the sun penetrates the earth and then it stirs everything up and it comes out. We think that animals have a sixth sense, so to speak, and they're aware of a storm coming or a tornado or the tsunami for that matter. They talked about how all the animals went up into the woods. There were a couple of tribes that did as well. Obviously, they were walking barefoot. We have the same thing, but we wear these rubber shoes and they ground us out and we get none of that. If you did an experiment where you walked barefoot for a week, you'd notice a difference in your life. You would actually slow down and you would be a little bit more present, so to speak. And
because we always think animals know so much more than we do.
They're the same
you know,
as us.
they're the same as us. It's that they're connected all the time. So we've lost our connection because we're not connecting. We don't get that electromagnetic field, and the feet are the biggest absorbers of energy.
They absorb about 70% of the skin. There's some innovative capitalists out there trying to rewrite nature. I mean, I don't know how many of you guys understand geoengineering. They're spraying the skies to control weather patterns right now. Look it up. You'll be blown away. They've been doing it since, they're chemtrails. It's been going on since '96, you know. And what are they spraying? Well, they don't have to disclose that information, but they're finding high counts of aluminum and barium in so many different places. You know, the salmon run that we went up to Alaska about a month ago, it produces $700 million a year, you know, in revenue, and everybody does fine. They make sure the animals are taken care of, that there's more than enough fish always for the bears and the eagles and everything. Well, just recently they started saying, well, let's start netting more. So Sarah Palin and Senator Stevens are getting kickbacks from giving anybody in here, a boat and some nets. They're like, well, we're going to get a percentage. Let's put more people out there. Well, the fish aren't making it back up the rivers. So their answer to this in British Columbia was, let's have farm-raised salmon.
Well, and they combined the farm-raised salmon and the wild salmon. What happened is it destroyed it destroyed the species.
And a farm-raised salmon eats carrots, which is really great, and grain.
And grain.
I don't know any fish that do that. And they say, oh, this is good for you, eat this. What are the side effects?
And it's we're kind of passionate about that because that's the newest thing. But even when you go to Whole Foods and they say sustainably farm-raised or organically farm-raised.
Yeah, what is that?
It doesn't mean anything because what you've done is you've taken their natural process away. You've taken their run away.
4 to 6 years they swim in the ocean and then they come back.
Yeah, and when you stop the journey, you stop the species. So we're really passionate about really understanding, getting information out. Our passion is to get information out to people. We actually have a radio show on Hay House Radio Wednesdays at 10 a.m., in case you want to tune in. And it's about, like, we want people to know about their food. We're not going to tell you how to eat, what to do. But your understanding of how you work and how you work in the world and where your food comes from is your responsibility. It's our responsibility. And we can all be healthier, happier, and more connected by making more humane, conscious choices in all the things that we do, in the little things.
Yeah, it's just awareness, and one size does not fit all. I eat a lot of raw meat. I've been doing it for 20 years. I worked on being a vegan. I got sick. I lost 20 pounds over 6 months. It just didn't work for me. Mariel was a vegan for 16 years, and her thyroid shut down.
But that doesn't mean that we're against being vegan at all, because I know a lot of people are vegan. It works really well for me.
Right.
Our point is you find out that system that works for you. You find that thing, but make humane choices. If you're going to eat meat, eat only, no, I mean, we actually invested in a farm, so we actually know where our food comes from, because we own the farm. But,
right, yeah.
but not everybody can do that. But you can be, you can know and you can connect. So, I mean, we don't have a lot of time today because we can go on and on and on.
We have 2 minutes of questions. Anybody have any questions, we'll answer anything.
Let's pick on Whole Foods.
Let's pick on them. Okay.
Your mainstream, mainline consumer thinks, Whole Foods is the gospel. Organic labels and so on. I have a European husband, and it's a given that these things have no antibiotics in the meat and so on.
Right.
And I feel that Americans, I'm living in Europe now, are duped that, Whole Foods is...
Yeah, you're allowed
true.
up to 35 chemicals in an organic food that's out there in commercial markets,
Yeah.
and they do not advertise that. And we have people that actually look into it. It's a shame. I mean, it's still better than going to Ralph's and this and that, but still, you're getting these empty things. We're into wild crafted foods.
That's why people need to know where their food is. They need to read labels. They need to. I have a cookie that is called a Blisket, and it's a gluten-free, sugar-free cookie, and it's organic, blah blah blah. But the reason I did it is I want to buy things that I can understand the label. I can read everything and say it, and it's understandable. It's simple. But Whole Foods will tell you, if you actually speak to heads of Whole Foods, that they're a specialty store. They're never really claimed to be a health food store, although they took over all the health food stores in the 90s, and created this thing. So they're not bad, but they're not saying that but the problem is everybody goes to a Whole Foods and they think everything's healthy. And that's just not the case. So people still need to be conscious and aware in their choices. But you're right. And Europe, by the way, I do gluten-free stuff, and the only reason I do it is because all the grains in America are processed so much. There's so many GMOs, grain
So
that we all suffer from celiac or gluten intolerance.
Right. So we're just getting the information out there. My dad had eczema for years and athlete's foot and this kind of stuff. He cut sugar out of his diet and cut out gluten and wheat. In a month, it was gone, and he was on medication, and it was gone. I mean, there's so much information. You just have to look for it, and it's there. And we're big advocates, obviously, of talking about this, and we live this lifestyle. This is who we are, and we really, really, really love it. Anybody else? Yeah.
I've worked as a middle school teacher in inner city schools for the last couple of years, and I've noticed sort of an overwhelming disconnection from nature, especially there.
With kids?
With my students. And I'm wondering what exciting school-based programs you've seen or you've heard about that have helped try and connect, especially urban students.
Well, that's one of the things that we're trying to put together. We're trying to put a system together that we can bring, urban-based kids to the farm and understand.
There's a school on the east end of Long Island where I grew up. And they take kids that are on welfare. They'll take any child who wants to, step outside. And also the whole school works together on school plays, and they all eat organic. They all have to clean up their plates and bring them up. There's a whole system. But they take them to Japan once a year. The whole school goes to Japan.
Yeah, but you're not going to find that. I think what he's saying is like, what are the programs that, what we're trying to do is actually create programs where we can go in and talk about nature, because I think they're disconnected and don't even know what nature is.
Well, the fact that they're giving up phys ed, kids have ADD, they're on sugar.
They're on sugar and they don't exercise.
When I was a kid, if I was excited and I was a little bit out of control, the coach or the gym teacher would say, go run. Go take a lap and come back and then talk to me. Well, you take another one. Well, you'd be calm after that, And we're saying, oh, we can't sit still.
Well,
I wouldn't be able to.
And he's drinking Coke, and
run around.
it's crazy. So you're right. There's a big problem, and it's something that we really want to address because we really want to you know, it's, if you change children, you're going to change the world. And if you can really make them understand, and there are some good programs. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but there are some programs they're trying to implement. But it's very, you know, there's such tremendous bureaucracy involved. I mean, to get salad into schools is such an ordeal. So I have a friend who's trying to do that, and it's not easy. So I appreciate your concern.
Yeah,
sure.
it's so much of it we believe has to do with the food. You know, food and the pharmaceutical companies and the doctors. You know, people have a belief that if you go to the doctor, you'll be healed. They work on disease. They don't work on health. They don't understand health. They have no understanding of health at all. I have discussions with doctors all the time. They don't even know what I'm talking about. And they all say to me, when you get to be my age. And I'm like, well, how old are you? And they're all younger than me.
No, I was going to say, when I went to my family doctor, she's probably mid-30s, she gave me a sheet as I was walking out. I was giving these to my patients, and it was all about eating organic, healthy food choices, everything, and it was very proactive, and it was really a wonderful surprise.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, I think the more that can happen, and don't get me wrong, I think there's a tremendous movement for people like us who really want to know and want to get it out there, and we're raising our kids differently than we used to raise our kids. But on the other side, there's also a tremendous amount of the population, because we travel all over the country, all over the world, and there's a lot of overweight kids and childhood diabetes, and the whole thing is out of control. But there are certain areas that really believe in it. And my thing is, if you want to make a difference in your life. If you want to be environmental in your life. When you make a difference in your own little environment, first of all, your own body, you actually make a difference in the world. I truly believe that, because I think that connects to you making different choices in whatever you do. So it's all about because, we get overwhelmed. We think, God, this is such a big problem. What do I do about it? What you do about it, what I do about it, is I make a good choice in what I eat. I make a good choice in how I live. I make a great choice in what I think.
And that's a great way to become political. You know, a lot of people that I've grown up with are all about, they do this, they do that. I said, well, what about we? We can make choices to do something different. Somebody said something to me about food in LA. I said, well, there's 21 million people there. 10 million of them have a little bit of property. How about everybody grows 5 things on the property? Could you imagine that?
I just read an article on Cuba. They all have gardens because they have to. But I mean, imagine if in a place like Los Angeles,
10 million people can have gardens. 10 million people
had a little plot of, that's number one, connection. You know where your food comes in, and you're actually adding to something. You're bringing better air into your environment. There's so many good things you can do just in your own little, and we even talk to people, because I have 2 daughters that live in New York, and they grow a little
plant
pot
in the window.
Of, herbs or something, just to do something that makes you a little bit more connected to doing it, touching it, feeling it, and being a part of it. And that's actually, I feel that the whole thing is truly a grand spiritual practice, when it's about your life. Your lifestyle should be a spiritual practice. Every day should be. It's not just about yoga or meditation. It's about, how do I step into each moment?
It's about rock climbing. Who are we kidding?
It might be. It might be.
For me.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks.